Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Joe Palladino, who's the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions at American University. Now, we had American University back on the podcast in episode 128. That was June of 2023. So, Joe, looking forward to a great conversation so that we could hit the refresh button on American University. Thanks so much for being here. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing good, and thanks so much for having me, John. Happy to give some updates about AU and everything that's been happening down here.
Well, that's awesome. We're happy to have you as well, Joe. So, can you share what's new on campus since that last episode with American in terms of any exciting new developments or any upcoming projects that you could share, Joe?
Yeah, so there's actually a few updates. It's been a busy year for us. So, probably one of the biggest ones is we have a brand new dining hall on campus that we're very excited about, just opened this fall. We're also in the process of completely renovating our athletic facilities. So, those are going to be up to date. We just broke ground on those this year. So, they're not going to be done soon, but they are in progress, which we're very excited about. And probably the biggest update we have in terms of like our admissions process is we have added early action for the first time ever, which is exciting. So fingers crossed that that goes well this year. We wanted to give students who are just prepared earlier the opportunity to get their decision a little bit earlier. So it should be a fun process for us.
Well, that's awesome. And any time that there's new buildings going on, such as your new dining hall or renovating your athletic facility, that's always a great sign that the university is thriving. And we'll come back to the early action in terms of you adding that as part of your overall review process. But again, it's great to hear that there's new construction going on. So, Joe, can you share what are your most popular academic programs and even student activities that you offer on your campus?
Yeah, so our number one academic major is international studies. I think being located in DC, that makes a lot of sense. There are tons of opportunities in that major on our campus and in our city. We are actually the largest international studies program in the country. We're the second largest in the world. And that just comes from a medley of different study abroad experiences we offer. We're within walking distance of the US embassies. Just the experiential learning opportunities you get in that major in Washington is unmatched by any other place. So, not surprisingly, our number two major is political science for kind of the same reason. We have students who can intern on Capitol Hill, work with different lobbying groups and organizations within the city. And then our third most popular major is business administration. We are the oldest business school in Washington, D.C., and with that comes a lot of connection throughout the city. So, again, there's a lot of experiential internship opportunities. Our Capital One is headquartered here, Marriott, Amazon's opening its second headquarters in Arlington, and that's because of the business developments that are coming out of Washington.
Well, that's terrific. Obviously, you offer political science. You have the largest international studies program in the country, located in beautiful Washington, D.C., which, of course, offers that experiential learning, as you mentioned. And so I was also curious, as many people are, about the application review process itself. Could you explain your holistic review process, Joe, and what specifically does the admissions team look for when reviewing those applications?
Yeah, so we take every piece of the application into account. So, first and foremost, we're going to look at your transcript. We're going to make sure you're academically prepared to attend American University. And although that is not the end all be all of your application, it is something that we do take into account. After the transcript, we go into the kind of experiential parts of your application. So, we look at your essay, we look at your activities, we look at your recommendations. All of those play a part in our final decision. So it's not like one piece is weighed heavier than the others. On a whole, we just want to make sure that you are academically ready to take courses at AU and that you would fit in on our campus.
Well, that's great, Joe. And I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the transcript because number one, you want to make sure that students that come to your campus are, in fact, able to handle the rigors of the academics. But let me ask you a follow up about the transcript, Joe. I know that we talk about the application review being holistic, but some people refer to looking at the transcript as a holistic process as well. They're not just looking at the GPA. Now, many people want to know, oh my God, is this GPA the right GPA? Because everyone wants to know a number. Everyone thinks that there's a cutoff. But in terms of someone asking about a holistic review of the transcript, what can you share in terms of how you look at that document, which of course is the most important piece of the overall application when it comes to the academics?
Yeah, of course. As you mentioned, we're not just looking at grades. There are a lot of factors that go into the transcript. Another big part of it is rigor. We look at how hard the classes you're taking are. So, are you enrolled in APs? Are you taking honors? Are you challenging yourself in your school's curriculum? And we do that on a school by school basis. So, let's say you attend a school that doesn't offer AP courses, and your school profile says that Honors English is the hardest class that your school offers, and you are taking Honors English. You are going to get a high rigor score because you are taking advantage of the curriculum that your high school offers. So we take that into account as well. Another big thing we look for is trends. So a lot of students might not do well in their first year. It's an adjustment period for a lot of students. And if that's your worst year academically and there's a continued trend of higher grades year after year, that's something we definitely look at. We take that into account when reading the application. So it's not just counting up the number of A's or B's that a student has. We really do look for trends within the transcript as a whole.
Well, I appreciate you mentioning trends, but also based on the context of what your high school offers. So basically, students, what does your high school offer? What did you choose to take? And how did you perform over those 4 years? Again, looking at those trends. So we appreciate that, Joe. And I know that American University has been, in fact, test optional for quite some time now. Can you share your philosophy behind this decision?
Yeah, so we've been test optional for over a decade. We've never believed that one test is necessarily indicative of a student's entire academic career, so we don't put too much weight on it. So this year, 60% of our admitted students did not submit test scores with their application. So a majority of students do not send them in. And I think the first question people have is, if I don't send in my test scores, do you assume I have low test scores? The answer is no. We do not assume you have bad test scores. There are so many factors that go into the SAT, ACT, whatever test you're taking. And some of them are not the student's fault. A lot of it comes down to access, inclusion, finances. Some students may not be able to take the SAT 3 times to super score the best way. So we don't put a ton of weight behind those scores. But if you are someone who takes the SAT and you do really well on it, you should submit that score. There's a lot of things that can help you by submitting. And one of the biggest things is merit scholarships. So at AU, we do count your SAT towards a merit scholarship if you do well. But if you're someone who has a low test score, it does actually hurt you to submit a low test score. It is, we are taking it into account whether you submit it or not. So if you're someone who doesn't have the best test score, don't feel compelled to send it in just because you think we're going to judge you for it. Keep it to yourself. That's totally fine.
Well, I appreciate that. You talk about the fact, first of all, that you have been test optional for over a decade. You mentioned that 60% of the students that you admitted, in fact, did not submit their test scores. As a quick follow up, you mentioned using the test scores towards merit based scholarships. So if I'm a student that decides not to submit my standardized test, am I still eligible for any of your merit based scholarships?
You are still eligible for merit-based scholarships. Yes, it is a factor we put into merit-based scholarships, but it's
Hmm.
not the only factor. If you're someone who has really, really high grades but a low test score, just send us the grades. Don't send in your test score. You'll still get merit scholarship. It would actually drag you down to send in that test score. So you really have to look at how your GPA interacts with your test scores and decide if it's worth it for you to send that in.
Well, we appreciate that. And another thing that's come up a lot in the conversation has been institutional priorities. So, Joe, what's your institutional priority in terms of the number of freshmen you are looking to admit each year, of course, as an incoming class? And how many overall applications do you receive to fulfill that number?
Yeah, so this number changes year to year depending on, past classes, how many students enroll, so on and so forth. But typically, we are looking to enroll a class of around 2,000 students. We get about 18 to 20,000 applications per year, somewhere in that range. This year, we received about 18,500 applications total, and we had about a 50% admit rate overall.
That's terrific. So you said on average you're receiving about 18 to 20,000 to fulfill a freshman class of about 2,000, and you had an admit rate this year of 50%. And I'm glad you mentioned that because So many people are stressed out about the college admissions process. And I think a lot of them are stressed out because they're applying to schools or applying only to schools whose admissions rates are only 10% or less. And so if you're applying to schools that are at 10% or less students, no matter whether you're, the captain of the soccer team or you have an A+ average, those schools are reach schools for everyone, because I go back to the point that you received over 18,000 applications to fulfill a class of 2,000, which is, big numbers. And it should give insight into the fact that for every college, there are far more qualified students applying than the actual seats available. So it's very important, we emphasize it all the time, to have that balance list. Now, Joe, unpackaging the overall application further, have you seen any recent trends in students' personal statements that stand out to you? And perhaps can you share some tips for crafting a compelling essay?
The essay is my absolute favorite part of the application to read. I love going through them. And I think it's because it's the only part of the application where we really get to know who the student is outside of their grades, and what they're doing outside of the classroom. This is really a chance to see what's important to you. And that is something we take into account when we read an application. As admission counselors, the thing that connects us to students the most is that essay. Sometimes I read an essay and I absolutely fall in love with a student, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they are amazing. And I think my biggest piece of advice for the essay is to be as personal as possible. You are the only one who has your story, and you should be able to tell that. And I think a lot of people freak out that they have to have this like life changing, earth shattering moment to have a good college essay. And that's just not the case. Some of the best essays I've ever read have just been about the most mundane topics, but they're so well written that you fall in love with them. And one example I love to give as a student, I recruit in Massachusetts. So one of my students, he wrote his essay about just a day in the life of a typical high school student, but it was from the perspective of his car that he named Jenny the Jeep. So Jenny the Jeep was telling the story about how he would go to class early in the morning to study, or go out through the Wendy's drive-through with his friends, or like just cry when things got a little overwhelming. Like, it was so well written, and it was simply about being a high school student. So you don't have to have some life-changing moment to have a good essay.
Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals, designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process. Well, that's awesome. And, that's another thing that's come up a lot on the podcast episodes, that it's not so much about the topic, but it's how you use the topic to really give insight in terms of who you are as a person. Again, we say it all the time. The transcript gives you your grades, the activity sheet, what you did outside of the classroom, but it's that essay that really shows off your personality. So I appreciate that insight. And speaking of the extracurriculars, how do you evaluate extracurricular activities, Joe? And of course, any leadership roles in the application that are listed. And has this aspect become more or less significant in recent years?
I think it's hasn't become less significant in recent years. The way we read it has just changed. It used to be that there were these core clubs or activities that students felt they had to be in, like the National Honor Society or debate or
Hmm.
mock trial, like the big ones. And now I think it's like I read students who are president of the anime club, and I'm like, that is so
Hmm.
cool. Like, you are still taking
Right.
leadership in your own area. You founded this club about something you're passionate about, and that really is what we're looking for. You don't want to join a club just to tick a box. You want to do stuff that you're actually interested in doing. And I think that's really what we're looking for. And that passion definitely comes across in that activity section. So you can be involved in a medley of different things. What we really look for is leadership within that activity. So not only are you on a sports team, are you captain of a sports team? Are you president of a club? So on and so forth.
Well, that's great. And I think the point with the activity sheet is to be involved with things that you are really interested in. Don't just join clubs that you think admissions reps want to see on your activity sheet. It's really important to, frankly, be happy and participate in
Yes.
things such as, like you said, the anime club, the chess club, whatever it is, to show off again, your personality and what interests you outside of the classroom. So we appreciate that. And of course, Joe, the letter of recommendation is another important piece of the overall application. So, what makes a letter of recommendation truly impactful? And have there been any notable examples, Joe, that made a difference in an applicant's evaluation?
Yes, so we read every single letter of recommendation that comes through to us. And about 2 years ago, we actually did away with requiring a counselor recommendation. So we only require one letter of recommendation from one teacher. And that, again, was more of an access issue. Some guidance counselors have 500 students on their caseload, and some have 10. So, at no fault of the student or the guidance counselor, sometimes it was just hard to get a fulfilling letter of recommendation. So, because of that, it's totally optional because we really want recommendation letters that can speak to the student as an individual. The best letters of recommendation I have read have come from teachers who maybe the student has stayed behind for extra help or has tried to get ahead of the game or learn a little more about the topic. It's not always the teacher that you get the best grade in the class for. It's about the teacher who really knows you the best that writes the best letter of rec.
Well, that's great insight. And, earlier you mentioned that early action is a type of round that was just added to your overall application review. So, Joe, what are the different ways that a student could apply to American University? And what are the benefits of applying one way over the other in terms of course, being admitted or even being considered, of course, for merit based scholarships?
Yes, so now we have four pools that students can apply into. So we have early action, early decision one, early decision two, and regular decision. Early action and early decision one both have a November 1st deadline. Early action is non binding, early decision is binding. So if you decide to apply early decision, it means American is your number one choice. And if you are admitted, you'll withdraw your other applications and you'll attend American. Early decision two is the same exact thing as early decision one, just a later deadline. You have till January 15th to apply into that pool. And then regular decision is our last pool. That also has a January 15th deadline. Now, in terms of difference between all of those pools, in terms of acceptance rates or merit scholarships, you do have a higher acceptance rate within the early decision pools. About 80% of students in those pools are admitted because they are raising their hand. They're saying, I will come to AU if I get in. Regular decision, as I said before, saw about a 50% acceptance rate last year. And that does change year to year. The year before it was 40%. 2 years ago it was 20%. This year it was 50%. So it really does depend on year to year trends. In early action, I wish I had some stats to tell you, but I have absolutely no idea how that's going to turn out yet, but hopefully well. For all of those pools, merit is decided exactly the same. So it's not like if you apply early decision, you have a better chance of receiving merit scholarships or early action. Every student who applies will get the same consideration for merit scholarships.
Well, I appreciate that. And, one thing that caught my ear is when you said that if you apply early decision, of course, early decision is binding. And you said that you would quote unquote withdraw your other applications. Now, could you give us a little insight in terms of when students don't withdraw their applications on the admission side? You have, as you put it, over 18,000 applications. You don't know who's for real or not. And you don't know that they withdrew or didn't withdraw their application. So, how does that work on your side of the table on the admissions end? How problematic is it?
So it really hasn't been a huge issue for us in the past. Normally, students who are applying early decision are sticking to their word. They do have to sign a contract stating that if they get in, they will attend American and they will withdraw their applications. But obviously, we are not going to be hovering over their shoulder, making sure that that is what actually happens. It's not something we've really run into in terms of issues. Most of our students are committed, but at the end of the day, we're not going to like sue a student who comes early decision and then decide that that's not the place they want to go. There are a medley of factors that might come up, like finances or family issues
Right.
that require that student not to come in that year. We are obviously willing to be accommodating in those circumstances.
So we appreciate that. And in terms of demonstrating their interest, right? What do students do, Joe, to demonstrate their interest in American? And is that something that you take into account throughout your application review process?
We do take demonstrated interest into account. The more a
Great.
student interacts with us, the higher chance they have of being admitted. So it
Good
is
to
something
know.
we track. And there are a medley of different ways to show interest. Obviously, the most common one is coming for a campus tour, visiting campus. But if you're someone who doesn't have the means to do that, that's not going to count against you. We offer webinars throughout the fall. If you attend a webinar, you get a demonstrated interest point. We visit a ton of high schools throughout the fall. If we are coming to your area and visit your high school, come say hi to us. You'll get a demonstrated interest point for us. If you see us at a college fair, that's a point. We do an information session in Boston every year. If you sign up to come to that, it's a demonstrated interest point. We do those throughout the country. So anytime you interact with us is really a chance to get those demonstrated interest points.
Well, I appreciate that. So, students, we know that not every school is tracking demonstrated interest, but obviously here, American University does. But even if a school says they don't track it, the fact that you're doing these things, whether you're visiting campus, you're attending a webinar, those are ways for you to help determine whether or not the school is the right fit for you. So, whether or not schools state that they track demonstrated interest, it's important to do it for your own research. So we appreciate that, Joe. And what about students that may have had an IEP or a 504 plan while in high school? What resources does American University offer to help ensure that they continue to be successful once they're on your campus?
Yeah, so we do have our Academic Support and Access Center, which is available to all students, and they help students who might need extra time on tests or extra accommodations for tutoring, whatever it might be inside the classroom. Last year, they actually saw, on average, 6,000 students come through their office requesting some sort of help for whatever they might need. So we do try and make the classroom as accessible for all students as possible. We also have a really unique program at AU called the Learning Services Program. This is a program that first year students can apply into, and it's something we're very well known for. It is specifically for students with reading based learning differences. So, if you're someone who has just struggled with a learning difference, this program will give you direct mentorship throughout your 4 years. They'll make sure you have all of the accommodations inside the classroom, their specialized classes. It's a cohort based learning group, so you'll be with other students who are going through the same things you are. And I've never met a student in that program who hasn't absolutely fallen in love with it. It's a great thing to join. It is something that students have to apply to before they come to AU. So it is a separate application process. So I want to make sure that's clear.
Well, we appreciate that, Joe. And I think it's a good lesson for students and their families to ask in terms of what the resources are. And it's important to note that colleges have so many resources, whether you had a 504 plan, an IEP, or not, because not only do they want to accept you, they want you to be successful on their campus. And obviously, they want to keep their graduation rates high. So there are plenty of resources, regardless of the type of learner that you are. So thank you so much for that, Joe. And this has been an awesome conversation. Before we get to the last question, Joe, are there any questions that I simply didn't ask or a topic that I didn't bring up today that you'd like to share with us now?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'd love to mention is we do have a new supplemental question this year. Uh, our supplemental question is completely optional. We do not take off points if you do not answer it. However, I think any chance you have to tell a little bit more about yourself is great. And this year, the question is simply tell us about something you're passionate about. It can be anything, whatever you are interested in doing. And it's very short. It's about 400 words. You can easily write something in there. So that's going to be a great chance for students to share a little bit more about themselves in the application process.
Well, we appreciate that. And it's another indication that, in addition to the transcript, right, making sure that you, in fact, can handle the work, the academic rigors, in addition to the extracurricular activities, right, your activity sheet in terms of the type of community member you're going to be, they really want to know who you are as a student. So, in addition to that personal statement, they have this optional supplemental question, which I think is great. And again, another opportunity for the admissions people to get to know you students as a person. Joe, unfortunately, this does lead us to the last question, which is what are your top three pieces of advice that you would provide a student and their families getting ready for the college admissions process?
Yeah, so I think I've alluded to these in different answers throughout the podcast, but number one is be yourself. Your parent is not the one applying to school. You should be telling us about you. I know students are uncomfortable talking about themselves a lot of the time,
Hmm.
which I understand, but like this is your chance to brag. Like, let us know who you are, what you stand for, why would you be a good fit on your campus. The more personal you are in that application, the better. Number two is you really got to visit schools to learn what you like. I learned by visiting colleges that I am a campus person. I love a school that has a campus. I think that really helps to build community. And some students are like, oh my gosh, I want to be in the middle of a giant city and I don't want anyone to know my name. And that is totally fine too. Like, you really got to visit these different schools to see what's right for you. And then lastly, it'll all be worth it. At the end of the day, I can almost guarantee every student is going to get in somewhere. You will attend an institution and you will find your people at that institution. So even if it's not your first choice school, everything's going to be all right. You're going to get a great education and it all kind of evens out in the wash.
Well, those are great pieces of advice, Joe, and this has been a phenomenal conversation. Obviously, American is so lucky to have you on their staff, as were we on this podcast episode. I hope to have you again, Joe. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It was our honor and pleasure. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP.